everybody. Welcome to Take the Black Live, or WiC Live, as we sometimes call it around here, the show on the internet where myself, Dan Selcke of winteriscoming.net, and Daniel Roman of winteriscoming.net give you the correct rulings on all things pop culture, sci-fi, fantasy, books, movies, TV. Daniel Roman, how are you in your books?
I'm doing great. Yes, these are all most certainly my books. Not a one of them belongs to a public library that I may or may not be camped out in. How are you, Dan?
I'm doing pretty good. This is one of the last times I'll be in this space because the company has successfully subleased this office. So if you fell in love with this bare wall behind me, get ready to say goodbye. Hello, Martha. Hello, Julie. Hello, Nicole. Thanks for everyone for joining. Daniel, what is on the agenda for us gentlemen of erudition to talk through today?
It's the end of an era with that office. Well, we've got plenty on the agenda today. House of the Dragon stuff, as always. There is plenty and some very exciting House of the Dragon news. Then later on, we're going to get into some other fantasy and sci-fi shows we've been watching and talk about the latest and greatest in the news of this sci-fi fantasy world. But as always, we have to start with House of the Dragon. I'm a little curious. Julie says it's nice to see I'm safe. Thanks, Julie. I don't know why you thought I was in danger, but yes, I am here. And I'm not.
I did roast you pretty hard last week
Okay.
when you were out.
I see. I see. It all makes sense now.
I think your internet just didn't work.
It wasn't even mine. It wasn't
that's
even
true.
my
It was the
internet.
libraries.
It was the library's internet wasn't working last. That was an act of the gods. I could do nothing about it.
Daniel lives in like a bit more rural area than I do. So in my mind, that means he's running from bears all day. But it's just his internet went out and he's fine.
You joke about this. I almost stumbled on a fox the other day. So yeah, that's really
cool.
not that far off.
You know that the first successful fox dog hybrid has been bred?
I did not.
Well,
I want it. I want
Mhm.
it to come live with me because that sounds real cute. But yeah, anyway, we won't ramble too much more than we already have. Instead, let's talk about House of the Dragon.
Let's do it.
So the big news this week on the House of the Dragon front is that the premiere title, the title of the premiere episode for season 2 has been reportedly revealed. So we need to emphasize this is not from HBO. This is like a report that leaked out from Redanian Intelligence, which is a very they've got a pretty good rep for scoops.
Oh yeah.
They have ears on the ground, you know.
I judge them reliable.
Yes, they are more reliable than the usual scoop site. So we're gonna get into spoilers for Fire and Blood here.
Yeah, we are.
The season 2 premiere title has been revealed to be A Son for a Son.
Woo!
Whew. And what do we make of that, Dan? What does that mean?
Okay, let's just go right into the spoilers. This A Son for a Son is Julie said that was a moose. I think I said you were being attacked by a moose, a bear. I think I said like there is a school of herring in your sink. Anywho, a son for a son is a phrase from George R. R. Martin's book, Fire and Blood, where basically after Aemon Targaryen kills Rhaenyra's son Lucerys, Daemon is away and he says Lucerys shall be avenged, like an eye for an eye, a son for a son, something like that.
Yes.
And what he means is
an eye, a son for a son.
And what he means is, and this is the last chance for you to close your ears to spoilers, what he means is he is going to utterly kill Targaryen kids on the green side of the equation. So one of, in this case, King Aegon's kids. He has a few. We've met a couple glancingly. And I'm sure we have to go into like we'll see how far we get. Daemon puts a plan into motion. And at the end of it, a child of royal blood is dead. And things
Nice.
get pretty brutal, pretty dark, pretty grim. It's called the Blood and Cheese scene because the people who do it are named Blood and Cheese. Maybe we'll meet them more. And
Yeah.
it sounds, and we've always known that scene's coming. It's a big moment. It's going to have to happen. The producers are talking about. The producers said like you won't be disappointed. You think you'll be satisfied, whatever that means in this case. It's like a cruel scene. Like even in
Yes.
like a scene like the Red Wedding in Game of Thrones, there's kind of like this kind of like epic, majestic sort of bigness to it, where it's like this tragic shake, like they're doing like this big hall, and there's a huge turn. It's at a wedding, everyone's in fancy clothes. There's a lots of extras around. This could be a lot like meaner and just kind
Yes.
of more intimate and icky violence.
Yep.
We've almost coming. My supposition with this is that if it's in the title, it might be in the first episode. I know it's coming. I'm down for it. I'm nervous about it, but I know it's coming. I don't know if I like it in the first episode, though, because I don't feel like we've spent much time with the kids. And I think a rule of drama is you have to know what you're going to lose before you lose it. So I worry about that. Do you worry about that, Daniel?
No, not at all.
Well,
I well, I agree with the rules of drama that you said about knowing what you're going to lose. I think they're going to have to do legwork in the premiere in order for this to land well. But I like it in the premiere because we've got a lot to get through, and Blood and Cheese is really like a very direct response to what happens with Lucerys Valerian at the end of season 1. Enough so that even putting them in separate episodes like this is stretching it out more than the book, which is fine. I understand the need for it. It was the right choice. But I like getting it early. Were we really going to get that attached to the kids involved in this? Probably not. They're
not
all
so much the
basically
kids.
Toddlers.
Sure. I don't know kids,
Yeah.
but like more like Helena, honestly. Like I feel like we can get more attached to her to know what she's going to lose, and Aegon and how they work as a couple. Like the
Yep.
kids, yeah, they're kids. You know what? Killing kids on TV and movies, it's a dicey business, let me tell you.
It is. I agree with that.
It doesn't happen a ton outside of like kind of the most exploitative of horror movies because it's so close to the bone of what we as humans do not want to see a child getting. And again, I'm not going to say it because we might not only get demonetized, but like letterbombed if I talk about it. Like it's in the book, it's pretty brutal and it's kids.
Yes. This is in
that case, I think some runway is appropriate to kind of prep us. I'm getting nervous just thinking about it. I mean, whenever there's like Game of Thrones has to have like kind of set so many firsts for violence on TV or shock on TV, and it's just heartening and dispiriting to know like you can go further.
You can go more. Yeah. And I do think, Blood and Cheese is kind of classic cruel George R.R. Martin. At his like this is a classic George R. Martin type of thing that happens in Blood and Cheese, the way it's framed to Helena in that scene. We won't do the details, but she has to pick a kid and it doesn't things get messy real quick. It is going to be a brutal scene. It is probably one of the most shocking moments of the Dance of the Dragons. Really important for them to pull it off. And, Philip Plus is right. Game of Thrones did have multiple dark scenes that kind of recalled some of this. And I will agree with what you were saying, Dan, about child murder. Don't demonetize us. We don't approve. I still think.
And we're not afraid to say it. Yeah.
We're not afraid to say it, but we do not support it. I still think one of the hardest scenes to watch in all of Game of Thrones is Shireen Baratheon getting burned alive.
100%.
Bar
that is
none.
Very true.
No other scene in that show, maybe except the Red Wedding, makes me like as nauseous to watch as Shireen.
I agree.
So
I completely agree.
I think Blood and Cheese, this is going to be a big moment. And so Philip Plus kind of, it sounds like he's agreeing with you, Dan, a little bit about I think it could be the second episode that it actually happens. We just hear.
I feel like it's gotta be.
Well, so here's my question for you about that. We have a lot of ground to cover in
What about
season
blood and
2.
cheese? Like we gotta meet blood and cheese, don't we? Okay. Anyway, go on.
I mean, blood and cheese are only so in the book, they're only introduced as this awful thing happened, and here are the people that did it. So it's very much like they're introduced as a runway into the act. We don't like they don't get development. It's just like this bad thing happened. Here are the people who did it.
And here's the opportunity to expand and correct that.
Yes, the thing that all Westeros fans have wanted is a fuller arc for cheese. You're on point there.
I think, I mean, I'm not really joking. Like
that's fair.
The book is so different. The book, as we know, Fire and Blood is not a novel. Like in a novel, I would want some talk about who Blood and Cheese are. It's not. It's like this, and the whole appeal of the book is like no one knows who they are. Kind of makes them, because that's just the way history works. Like it falls through the cracks. But on a TV show where we have access to everybody and everywhere at all times, I feel like they should be not. They're not going to be like, super detailed characters, but they should have more character than they have in the books, which is none. I do think that it's going to have to be for a TV show. I would have introduced them on season 1, but as we know, I'm not the producer.
Yeah.
No, I like Philip's idea of he says in this episode and it happens later, but we'll see what happens. And yeah, child unaliving, the whole unalive phenomenon is wild, but we don't have to talk about that.
Yeah. So let me ask you a question here, Dan. So what I was getting at in terms of having a lot of ground to cover. So we know Blood and Cheese is coming. We have basically one big benchmark for this season, which is that Rook's Rest is happening in episode 4, presumably. We got another piece of news this week, which is that Gunthor Darklyn has reportedly been cast and will be played by It is a great name. Gunthor Darklyn of House Darklyn will be played by Stephen Pacey. And Gunthor Darklyn, that is a good picture. Good choice of picture there, Dan. So from what I recall, Gunthor Darklyn features primarily before Rook's Rest.
Yeah.
So if Blood and Cheese happens any later than the first episode, that only leaves us 2 episodes before Rook's Rest. Is that time to cover everything else we need to get through before that huge set piece happens?
I'll put it this way. I would much rather they steamroll over the Gunthor Darklyn incident than they steamroll over Blood and Cheese.
Okay, that's fair. Can't dispute that. That's the right choice. But there's other stuff too.
I mean, there is, but honestly, like second episode, episode 3 devoted to like Aegon firing Otto, hiring Kristen hatching plans, going out to castles, and like he mostly just rolls over them. We won't have to see a battle at Gunthor Darklyn's Palace of Intrigue in Duskendale or whatever. But it's like a quick scene where like better surrender. Like they're not gonna spend resources on that.
Yeah,
I can envision as a writer more ways to kind of summarize some of that stuff than to summarize the lead up, execution, and aftermath of a child unaliving scene. It's just such a sensitive thing, and it's one of those make or break things. It's one of those big things where, like, if you don't do Ned Stark's execution right, the whole thing is screwed. If you don't do the Red Wedding right, the whole thing is screwed. There are folks who argue that if you didn't do Daenerys' turn right, the whole thing is screwed. You don't do Blood and Cheese right, the whole thing is screwed. So, like, you gotta do it right.
You know what makes me think about this as a premiere thing is that it kind of fits the show's pattern, because season 1 started with probably the most shocking scene of the first season, which was Emma's childbirth horror. So
effectively horror.
This show seems like it might be developing a like a structural pattern of like, here's a big awful thing right at the start, which if it was done badly would ruin us, but we're going to do it good, and hopefully you'll come along for the ride. I
also like Philip, by the way. Good suggestions all around. Thank you, Philip. And yes, Julie, he gunned through Darklyn and Nicole. It's a not one of Martin's more lyrical names,
I like
is gun. It's so like every single syllable just sounds like it's coming out of a sewer grate, like Gunther Darkland,
Wow.
but whatever.
Wow.
I like Philip's suggestions that the Cargill twins might fight later in the season. I agree, because it seems like we're packing a lot into the first. I'm fine with changing things around as long as it works. I thought there were some hits and misses in the first season, more hits than misses, so I'm cool to go with it. But yeah.
Philip Plus takes donations. Yeah, I agree about Cargill Bowl.
Or subscription fees.
Yeah. I think I wouldn't be surprised to see that happen later in the season, so they can build that up a bit more, and the Greens can have some bad stuff happen to them first. Like, so we do know Blood and Cheese is coming. We also know that they're not going to totally gloss the aftermath of Blood and Cheese, because there have been
funeral procession scene.
There's a funeral procession scene. There have been other rat catchers cast reportedly, which this isn't really a big spoiler, but Egon takes out what happens on the rat catchers, because he knows one was a rat catcher, but he doesn't know which one. So kill all those rat catchers, and maybe you'll get the one.
Hope you like rat-borne diseases, King's Landing.
Yep. Well, King's Landing, it's got its problems. So yeah, that's the big House of the Dragon news. The only other thing we really had to talk about there is that there's a lot of ship stuff filming currently. So, you know, House of the Dragon is no longer out filming in Bourne Woods. They're now pretty much strictly at Leavesden Studios, I believe. So they're doing a lot of night shots, a lot of shots on ships. That could be any number of things.
Could be anything.
So, yeah, there's going to be some traveling this season.
Yeah, like I've heard some folks say that the Battle of the Gullets moved to next season. I've heard some, maybe it's, I don't know. I'm not sure. All we know is that the first half seems pretty set, but you know what a mystery. Mystery's part of the fun. So there'll be boats. Good. Boats
There'll
are fun.
be boats.
I like them.
It's definitely a question though, because we haven't seen, for Rook's Rest, we saw a lot of filming for that battle scene. The Gullet, they've kept things quiet if they've already filmed any of the Gullet, comparatively.
I mean, can you imagine a boat battle scene? That must be so hard, because there's no way you're getting cameras. You're not getting a fleet of ships, of tall ships, going out into the water and putting cameras on. There's no way. It must be, if they're doing it, it's all done indoors on green screens and stuff.
Yeah, I think so. That's the way Game of Thrones always did it. All of the ship stuff was indoors, and you're right. It is. Don't get mad at me for saying this. It is a much more challenging thing to do it with actual ships. I've only seen a couple of shows really do it well. Black Sails is the one that comes to mind, but they built 3 ships because it's a pirate show and they were going to use them every season. They don't really need to do that for House of the Dragon. It's not really a good use of their budget to build a bunch of ships and put them on the ocean.
This build a medieval fleet. Yeah, why not? And
seriously.
Then, afterwards, you can sell it to Spain or something, and you can add to their navy.
Yeah, so most likely they're filming the Gullet at the studio, but I am still curious about just the fact that we have heard nothing about the Gullet battle, whereas Rook's Rest we heard so much because it was out in public.
Well, it was all out there, yeah.
Yeah, so we'll see.
Stuff happening. Good stuff. Interesting stuff.
Stuff afoot. You have any closing thoughts you want to say for House of the Dragon before we move on?
Does unalive apply to when you unalive yourself as well as unaliving someone else? Or is it just one or the other?
Why are you thinking this, Dan? That's so dark. It's not even in the conversation.
No, it's etymological. I'm just not sure how this word is properly used, because it's one of those new internet words that's kind of come of age because of the internet, and I don't know how to use it yet, and I'll figure it out.
Yep, I'm getting flashbacks to Tyrion and Jaime Lannister debating what all the different types of fratricide, patricide, all those things.
Oh,
yeah, but yeah, I do not know the answer to that.
It's just... not dark. I'm just curious about words.
That's
all right,
fair.
but what else is happening? around our little corner of the internet, Dan?
Yeah, so obviously things are still moving along on House of the Dragon, but there's some other fantasy shows doing pretty well for themselves right now. And one that I thought we could talk a little bit about today is the Wheel of Time, which is currently
So
in
much fun.
it is so much fun. It is in its second season. It had
Mhm.
kind of a notoriously rocky first season. The first season got railroaded pretty hard by COVID. So it was a little shaky in some ways in general. And then COVID came along and took a big dump on the production.
It was still
Um,
good. I still liked it, like except for
it,
those last 2 episodes. But I thought it
yeah,
got I thought it got dumped on too much online, and I think it's pretty remarkable how a lot of the same people have now come completely around and are really enjoying
yes.
things this time around.
Yeah, so this was kind of the thing with this. So the Wheel of Time, episode 5 has come out, and it was really
Yes.
good. And I think episode 5 was kind of a turning point for the series, where it's like, even if you are the most obtuse, if it's not exactly the way it is in the books, it's garbage
Which it
fan,
isn't.
which it isn't. It episode 5 was just good television. I don't see any way to look at that and be like, it's not faithful, it's this and that. Like, it was just really good. And I think the show is trending upward.
Mhm.
um so I'm gonna come out with a bold take here, because
Okay.
we've both seen episode 6.
Yes, we have.
We can't talk really about episode 6 yet,
No, we
aside
can't.
from to just say yay, nay.
I, I enjoyed it. Yeah, it was good.
Yeah, I think episode 6 is fantastic. And I think so. We talk all the time about like the next Game of Thrones. All these studios were looking for the next Game of Thrones and this and that. And on a purely objective level, if any show was actually going to be that, it was always going to be the Wheel of Time. Like, in terms of like
Sure.
the breadth of the book series, the type of fandom it promotes is very similar to A Song of Ice and Fire. Like, just the nature of the beast, with that long, huge book series with a bajillion characters and details.
Mhm.
But it wasn't until episode 6 specifically that I actually believed that the Wheel of Time could pull it off. I
Really?
now feel like this is going to be the next Game of Thrones if they can just keep at it.
Big
Is that
words.
too bold?
I mean, everyone's next Game of Thrones is something different to them. I'm really enjoying the Wheel of Time.
Nice.
I don't think I go that far. Like, for
Yeah,
instance, I agree with Julie wholeheartedly that it's been a standout and the costumes are amazing. The
they are.
costumes
They're
are
incredible.
great. I love the costumes. I love High Lady Suroth and her big old nails and her weird mask. I love Lanfear and her dominatrix get up.
Lanfear. Yeah, she's great.
I love the High Lord Turok guy and his Sanchen craziness. Oh, they're so good. They're a little bit too much sometimes, which is kind of where they're very different shows to the time in Game
Oh,
of Thrones.
sure.
The wheel. Okay, so at one point, I remember either David Benioff or Dan Weiss, the guys behind Game of Thrones, said that when they're making Game of Thrones, it's kind of like on the edge of becoming Monty Python at any moment. Like, a little tonal change would turn this into a comedy.
Yeah,
Because
yeah.
everyone is,
I
they're
could
all
see that.
in like these medieval outfits and they're talking very seriously about things that are, non-existent and dragons and all that stuff. The Wheel of
Sure.
Time is even closer. The Wheel of
Oh,
Time,
yeah.
there is a bit of campiness to it that it's a serious work, but there's just some increased level of camp on it, which
Totally.
involves the costumes and involves, like, I mean, these, ancient 10,000-year-old beings who are like batting eyelashes at the sexy young Rand tied to a wheel shirtless. It's
Yeah,
it's a level of artifice that is just a little different from Martin's world.
absolutely.
Sometimes I've criticized like The Witcher as kind of like the resurrection of those like Xena Hercules shows, but with a nicer coat of paint. The Wheel of Time has that element too, but I like it. But it's like doing it right. It's it kind of knows what too much, and it knows how to find like the emotional kind of Douglas Sirkian moments of heightened emotion
Yes.
and to make you feel it. And I do. And it has some biases. The books, I don't think, are a bit more of their time than A Song of Ice and Fire or The Lord of the Rings is. I think that's a bit of a weakness sometimes.
Yeah, I think
So
that's a fair
I like
statement.
it a lot. I really do. I like the first one. I like it even more this season. I'm not prepared to say it's the next Game of Thrones. Also, Game of Thrones is like a phenomenon. It's like watched by everybody and their mother. Like, I'm not sure this show's gonna
Yeah,
be that, but I like it a lot. I'm really enjoying it.
cool. Yeah, so when I say the next Game of Thrones, I don't necessarily mean it's going to be the next phenomenon. What I mean is like in terms of huge fantasy series that have the makings to build an enduring fandom in the way that a Game of Thrones show did. I think the Wheel of Time, like if you just look at like in the book landscape, like the Wheel of Time is often said in the same breath as like A Song of Ice and Fire
Totally,
and The Lord of the
totally.
Rings. So it's obvious to me that it's like, well, sure, here's another one of those pillars of the genre being made as a series. If you can do it right, it should stand maybe not on the same level as Game of Thrones, but like able to be in the same
Oh,
conversation, as it
if
were.
they do the entire show front to back, it'll be a big accomplishment. Big
I
accomplishment.
totally agree. And yeah, it does have camp. You are totally right, and that is true of the
Which I
books too.
enjoy.
There
Yes.
yeah, they're like the Forsaken. There is an inherent level of campiness to the Forsaken. They have like meetings and like
No.
they're ragging on each other, and like one of my favorite moments in episode 5 is Lanfear being like,
Oh, that
Ishamael
one.
asks if she'll betray him, and she just smirks and says obviously, and it's like that is so perfectly the type of camp of these characters. I love it.
Mhm.
So yeah, I it wasn't until the past few that I really felt like they could nail the emotional depth without like sidelining the heart of the story, if that makes sense, because we got a few big emotional moments in season 1, namely Nynaeve saving everyone
Oh,
uh
right.
from Logain, and Swan and Moiraine. I loved both of those moments, but they were also moments the show had to stretch to and kind of invent. Like neither of those are explicitly from the books.
Mhm.
And now they're getting to the point where they're able to hit on big series moments that already exist in the novels and show they can do them right, and they can hit the emotions right and convey like the Shan Chan are real scary.
Yeah, they are.
Um,
Well,
they look cool, but we're gonna get a feel for the Shan Chan why they're so bad in the coming weeks. So yeah,
good. I
I
dig
don't
it.
know. This I think it's definitely trending upward. I'm really excited to see where it goes from
And
here.
do you remember when because you saw the first like 4 episodes,
Yeah,
or was it 3, like before anybody else?
I
And you
did.
had me scared. You were like, "Oh, there's
Yeah,
problems, there's choices. I don't like it." And
yeah.
then I don't know. How do you feel about being so wrong?
Well, I wasn't. So let's start
Mm,
there.
disagree.
I think a lot of the kind of issue choices that the early season made are going to get
Mhm.
ironed out in the back half. And I think what I have seen of
You were
uh,
hopeful.
yeah, I was hopeful, and now after seeing 5 and 6, I do think that they are ironing some of those things out. They're working on things that they maybe they rearranged some things in ways I didn't expect. I still have some torn feelings about like how they've navigated Moiraine's power being gone. I think they just haven't been very clear about some things with that, and that I hold to that criticism. I don't like Egwene being jealous of Nynaeve. That is another invented for the show plot line that I don't think serves the character super well. So there are things like that that I still kind of look at the beginning of the season and I'm like, I like now that I've seen what they're doing, I can understand more why they made the choices they made. I still don't know if I love some of them, and the jury's still out on others. But in general, like I don't, I've always been rooting for the Wheel of Time. I want it
Of
to do
course, yeah.
well, and now I'm just more confident that it's gonna really stick the landing this season.
Yeah, it's rocking pretty hard.
Yeah.
Boogie on Wheel of Time. Good on you. Any other
Yeah.
Wheel of Time thoughts?
I don't think so, aside from just to say, yeah, Julie, it would be so much fun for a designer to work on this
Yeah.
kind of show and let the imagination run wild. I can only imagine you're right. We did interview the costume designer. You can find it on the site, and it does sound like they had a pretty good time. And
Honestly, I think they could take it down like a notch and a half. Maybe. It can be a bit much. There's a lot of eyeliner on everybody, like those big sunken black pools of eyes.
Yeah.
Like they say that villains don't think they're villains, like no one thinks themselves a bad guy.
But if you're
Well,
wearing
if
that
that's
much
true,
eyeliner,
then why are you putting on that much black hole eyeliner? I don't know, man.
That's fair. I am hopeful that this is like, I don't know if this is a big spoiler. On a show like this, the factions kind of come and go and circle back around. This season is very heavily focused on the Shan-Chan. Future seasons, which is, it should be. This book is very
This book was
heavily
the
focused
Shan-Chan
on
book,
them.
yeah.
But the Shan-Chan aren't going to be a main focus every season the way they are this season. So I'm hopeful that as they explore some other factions, like the Aiel are going to get explored a lot more in season 3. I hope that every outfit is not as outrageous as the Shan-Chan. They're so strange and like purposefully other, that they really had to kind of go all out. But
I remember, like, I went back and looked at the book thing, and it said like Lady Suroth had like a hand, and like 2 of her nails were a bit longer. And the designer said, like, you know what? I think that means they're like she has nails that are a full 1.5 feet long. Go for it, like, do it, make it happen.
So at first, I thought those were fake, like
must
ring
get
things.
So dirty. Okay, sorry, go on.
They must. I thought those were like an aesthetic, like ring thing. Oh yeah, Richard, zoom in on those nails. I appreciate what you're doing.
Gross. Must take like 3 hours to clean.
So in this scene that we see here, she gets them chopped off right at the start. And High Lord Turok tells her, don't come back to court or in front of me until you're presentable. I think what he's saying is until your nails don't look so grody and they're long again. Mm-hmm. So that makes me think those are her real nails. Yeah. How many years does it take?
How do you use the facilities? Like, that's what's camp about the design.
Yes, it's
when it's like your sensibilities about what looks cool just go right past what might be like possible functional. Or real or functional. Yeah. But like, who cares? It looks cool, so do it. And I don't really mind it because it does look wild, but just you're not going to the bathroom with those.
You have to chuckle. Yeah, right. You have to chuckle about it. But I'm still enjoying it. Turok, especially, like when he opens the box, it's like that looks. You know how silly you look, right? Opening that box.
That's what they meant about like a step away from Monty Python, because like there could be a whole comedy scene of her like trying to pick up a fork to like eat something that's just not working. But that's camp, baby. That's when the dramatic dances close to the comedic unintentionally. And this has the budget to sell it, and I'm okay with that.
It does. And I think what's making the camp work better for me in this than say The Witcher, which also did have it, you're right. The Witcher tries to break the fourth wall. Like the camp is almost like directed at the audience more than like it feels like the show's not taking itself seriously, so why should we take it seriously? Whereas the Wheel of Time, like it's taking the camp serious, like the camp is serious camp here, but like it's not breaking the illusion for you of this world where people can accept these absurd things.
Until you get on a podcast to talk about it, then they can think about it. But even then, when you're watching, it's fine. Yeah, it's different. The Wheel of Time loves itself. The Witcher, I think, is embarrassed of itself, and it's always kind of wears it on its sleeve, and it's not as fun to watch.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. What a fun time. But yeah, bring it on. The new one on Friday is a good one, so I hope you all like it.
Yeah. Can't wait to talk about that next week. But that's not the only thing we're watching, reading, playing, doing. What else has been on your media menu, Dan, and all of
Oh,
you
I
out
like
there?
that. That's very nice of you to ask. Why don't we just do what we know you want to do and crap on the new episode of Star Wars Ahsoka?
I'll be honest. I hated the new episode of Ahsoka so much I forgot we were going to talk about it. That is
Wow.
how. Yeah. So we don't need. I don't know how much time we want to spend on it. Ahsoka has a new episode out.
Today.
It is
Wait, no,
today.
wait,
It
yesterday, whatever.
last night. Yeah, because
Sure.
now the streamers are realizing, hey, releasing things on weeknights when people are awake might not be a bad idea.
Love it.
Yeah, I really so this episode of Ahsoka was the one that paid off a lot of stuff that they've been setting up all season. Like basically the whole show is revolving around will they find Thrawn and Ezra Bridger? And this is the episode where the show answers that. And I just kind of found it did it in the most lazy, tired way possible. I think some of the whimsy was there. Tried really hard with the
Whimsy.
whimsy. I think Lars Mikkelsen as Thrawn is excellent. I love that actor. He voiced him in Rebels, so he's
Blue.
just instantly he comes on and it's like, oh, there he is. His hair looks real distracting uh, to me. He has a not great wig, but yeah, generally I just felt like Ahsoka kind of it relied really heavily on just ham-fisting in Deus Ex Machina to just get the characters to where they need to go. They're gonna get there. Thrawn will be there, like, hey, thanks for coming. Sabine, go stumble through random things, and you'll just happen to find Ezra, and yeah, you'll meet a little hermit crab person, and that hermit crab person will happen to be wearing Ezra's necklace, and a whole bunch of stuff like that, where it's like it made the search for these things feel like a big, huge event. And then they got there and they were like, oh crap, now we have to think of a way for them to meet these people. We'll just kind of make it happen. And yeah, I don't know. Dan, you've seen it. Did you hate it as much as I did? Am I being too hard
Oh
on Ahsoka?
no, but you're like invested in this. I was just bored in a
Yeah.
more normal way. I'm pretty close
In
to
a more
forming my
normal way.
theory on Star Wars at this point,
Yeah.
which is that back at a time when Marvel was raking in $11 billion a minute at the movies and maybe even on TV, Disney had these plans for these big universes of TV shows because it figured like, okay, it's going to be the MCU forever around here.
Yeah.
And it just gave the green light to pretty much everything. And we needed like maybe a fourth of this to actually exist. This show doesn't need to be here. It's just it's this it reads to me clearly a passion project by Star Wars head honcho Dave Filoni, a continuation of a thing he loves, even though it doesn't really have a ton of resonance if you aren't already on the bandwagon. And to spend that kind of money on a thing with that high a buy-in cost seems like silly business, and it wouldn't have been greenlit had Disney not been on a sugar high from a decade of Marvel money. That is my read on most of what we've gotten from Star Wars TV in the past few years.
I think that is a very, very fair read. And I have seen Rebels. But
Oh,
I'm
for
not one of
mercy's
those people
man.
who like watched it years ago and has a ton of nostalgia on it. I just watched it and enjoyed it. And even as someone who has seen Rebels, I felt like this episode kind of was just like meh. Um, and I agree with you. I think we've kind of gotten this Ahsoka's almost doing the same thing that the Book of Boba Fett did, where they named it Ahsoka for marketing reasons. A lot of people really like that
Oh,
character, but like the show's not really exploring Ahsoka Tano that much. Like we got the one episode with Hayden Christensen. That's like the one where you learned anything about this character. Like they haven't even explicitly said why she left the Jedi in this show that is about her. So yeah, it basically is try just Rebels season 5 live action. But
now with more money.
but with more money. And it's almost kind of awkward because they're recreating iconic things from Rebels, like Ahsoka reemerging from like a life and death situation and putting on a white cloak like Gandalf. But it's like they did that in Rebels. So at this point, it's like they're doing the vibes of that, because in order to make it make sense, you have to dial back the characters to then recreate the moment that you already did. So is it a direct continuation of Rebels, or is it a remake that is paying homage to it? It's a little bit of both. And at this point, it does feel like they're running on vibes and nostalgia rather than any sort of like real compelling story. And I didn't feel that that didn't really hit me until this episode, where I was like, oh, you guys just didn't know what you were gonna do with any of this. You just had some ideas, and I think you've been pretty fair when you said it's mostly serving to set up the Dave Filoni movie.
Ooh, yeah,
obviously the case at this point.
Yeah, it's lame. Julie's still watching The Winter King. Man, it's not good. Yeah, I'm so sorry about that one. Daryl Dixon, guys. I hear is a lot of fun. Folk definitely gonna be enjoying the Daryl Dixon Walking Dead spinoff, which I'm happy about. And yeah, Robert Harris is watching it, True Detective. Yeah, that's a really good show. That first season is very, very strong. The rest, I don't know. But the first one is pretty excellent. So yeah, good stuff all around. Lots of fun stuff to see, and some hits and misses on the big things that we cover.
Yeah, I mean, I'm still watching the One Piece anime. That's remains an awful lot of fun. A great way to tide yourself over in the bajillion weird years. We'll have to wait until season 2. Beyond that, I also saw the last voyage of the Demeter this week. Any good? It's mid. I would say it's a firmly mid, like, and I'm saying this as someone who, like, I enjoy a good like horror creature film.
Sure.
I think it was decent. I wouldn't say it's excellent. It's a lot of Dracula killing people on a boat, and it's kind of like once you've seen Dracula kill a person on a boat, they're still on the boat and he's still killing people. So it's, there's a claustrophobia element that lets you get, but in terms of like at a certain point, it was like they're just really trying hard to think of new ways to have Dracula kill a person in a different way on a boat. And speaking of child murder, that movie's got it. Child unaliving. That movie's got it in a way that I found they milked it in that movie in a way that I found somewhat gratuitous.
There you go. So, it's a dicey topic.
It's sometimes literally. It's easy to do it in a weird way that makes people go, "Oh, what are you doing there?" It's worth a watch. It's not going to change your life. But beyond that, the other big thing that I'm going to get into soon that I just wanted to take a second to highlight is this book. So this is Voyaging.
Oh.
This is the next George R.R. Martin related book that's coming out on October 3rd. It's a graphic novel, and Raya Golden, who has done a bunch of different books with George R.R. Martin, did all of the art and the adaptation. So this is the first of George R.R. Martin's stories that was in tough voyaging, called The Plague Star. So the reason I think this is an exciting one is because The Plague Star is kind of like a classic from Martin's catalog.
Mm-hmm.
So like there have been other graphic novels, like they did one for Doorways, and that was like a pilot of his that never got made. And like you read Doorways and it's like, well, this feels like a pilot of a thing that never is going to get completed.
Sure.
The Plague Star is like, it's a full novella that he wrote, and then he wrote more of them. That is like, it's up there with his older works like Fever Dream and Dying of the Light as like kind of one of the staples of his pre-A Game of Thrones catalog.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, this comes out October 3rd, and I'm very much looking forward to reading it.
Julie asks, is it finished? So just to clarify, this is like a thing he wrote years ago and just getting a graphic novel adaptation?
Correct. Yeah, this is Voyaging is a little bit of a weird book. So it's actually, I want to say like 6 different novellas. And each of those is a complete story. So it's not like Game of Thrones where it's, you don't need to worry about if he's going to finish it. Like this is it is a full story. The Plague Star is the first one. I don't know if they're going to do more of them. I hope so. I hope this one does well enough that they do more, because there are more of them, but each one is its own standalone thing. More similar to Dunk and Egg than a Game of
Cool.
Thrones.
Gotcha.
And yeah, so Valerie calling out, there is a cat on this cover. There is a grumpy old pilot with a spaceship full of cats in this story. So cat people unite. But yeah, so that's the next one of George R.R. Martin's that's coming out October 3rd. And really looking forward to reading it.
Very nice. That sounds exciting. Shall we move on to the WiC News Lightning Round as we bring this thing home?
Let's do it. Let us lightning.
Right.
I ordered these very, very thoroughly.
Nice. It's a fun change.
Yeah, that was a lie. I'm sorry. I wouldn't survive a minute in King's Landing. Ned Stark, I feel you, bro. But I'll ask you this first one. Let's go with that. If you've never seen the lightning round, we're going to go through stories we didn't have time to get through in the main show in 20 seconds, or producer Richard will buzz us into infamy and obscurity and shame. Just like that. Yes. So the first one up, Loki season 2 is following in the footsteps of Ahsoka. It is now releasing episodes in the evenings, and the first one will drop at 6 p.m. Pacific time on Thursday, October 5th.
Like the night before it was supposed to be released. I mean, yes. It's good. It's the right call because they're releasing them like before people can see them. It's just, it's like the second time they've bumped a thing back like weeks before releasing it. Like they've just got to plan better. Like, I guess that's Disney's problem in a nutshell, isn't it? Like you need to plan better in general. Just think further ahead. Great. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. This is cool. Daniel, there's a new Greek god sheriff in town. Percy Jackson and the Olympians will premiere its first 2 episodes on December 20th on Disney Plus, beloved YA series. And look, it's got a new poster. It's Percy Jackson. Yeah. He's doing something there. I don't know what it is.
Yeah, he's kneeling with a sword in front of some waves. So this is the Percy Jackson books by Rick Riordan. They're beloved middle grade books, kind of in the vein of Harry Potter, except about a kid who finds out he's a demigod, goes to Greek demigod camp, makes a bunch of friends, goes on adventures. Disney Plus is doing it December 20th. Will it be in the evening? We don't know. Probably.
It'll be announced for like midnight, and then it'll be like a week before. That's what's gonna happen. Okay.
Yeah. And Rick Riordan's involved, which is great because he wasn't really the last time they made movies out of this. Oh, here's a fun one for you, Dan. Okay. So Keanu Reeves, golden man of Hollywood, Keanu Reeves, he pretty much begged to have John Wick die for real. In I think multiple John Wick movies, but especially in John Wick 4, he begged.
And they didn't even really do it. Like he does kind of die, but they leave a door open if they went to my fight, they make it back. Yeah, those movies are incredible. He does like crazy stunts off walls, down staircases that probably destroys his aging body. Of course, he wants out. Yeah. Will he be back anyway? I don't know. Time to replace him with AI computers machines.
Don't say
that. I love saying that. Okay. This is cute. A 12-year-old Florida boy saved the life of his behavioral therapist after he was drowning in a pool by using CPR he learned from watching the Netflix television program Stranger Things.
Yeah, this is a pretty cute story. I mean, cute and not cute in that someone almost died, but so this kid, basically they were holding their breath in the pool and the therapist got in trouble. The kid pulled him out and then applied CPR from I think it's the season 1 finale of Stranger Things.
Hopper and Joyce, yeah.
Hopper and Joyce doing CPR on Will. Yeah, he remembered that and used it to save his therapist's life. So watch more TV because it could save you or someone you love.
Definitely will.
This is another good one. So we didn't mention this. We should live in eternal shame for not mentioning this. Today is George R. R. Martin's.
Okay.
Sorry, I need to mention it for this to make. All right, I won't mention it.
It's all good. You can't. It's too late now.
This is so stressful.
I'm gonna save it for the end, but it's okay.
Dark Winds, which is it's being produced by George R.R. Martin, based on the books by Tony Hillerman. It's been renewed for season 3 at AMC. Huzzah!
Sorry about that. You were gonna say this, George R. R. Martin's 75th birthday, which is
Yes.
great. Good for him. And he was the show. This show actually looks pretty cool. This show about these kind of like Navajo detectives in the 70s that George R. R. Martin and Robert Redford produces. A good producing cast there. Got the guy from Westworld, the American Indian guy. Looks pretty cool on AMC Max. Check it out if you like. It's coming back. Good for it. I'm sorry, Daniel. I didn't mean to make you feel stressed there. I was gonna like say that for the very end bit or something, but I can do something else. It's fine.
I didn't know. We should have communicated about George's birthday.
Okay. Speaking of Stranger Things, circling back, Stranger Things, The First Shadow, a stage play, big like cursed child type thing, is gonna happen in London in December. Young Hopper, Joyce, and other people. Vecna.
Yep. And I think the cast got announced today. So there's a lot of buzz about the Stranger Things, The First Shadow today. I always feel a little torn with the, shows getting plays because I never get to see them. But this one sounds cool. It's exploring the early days, like when Joyce and Hopper and Bob and Vecna were all in school. So I hope it's good. I imagine it will be, but I imagine I won't see it. So
I never saw The Cursed Child. I'm not sure if I'm going to see this new wave of TV show turn into plays. We'll see.
I don't know if you could pay me to see The Cursed Child, honestly.
It's 2 plays.
I have too much residual resentment from seeing them sell The Cursed Child script as a book to people, then seeing them come back in.
Too.
It did work, and they came back in for weeks to the bookstores, returning them when they realized they weren't books. It was a whole thing. Okay, so this is good news. So Barbie has now officially grossed more at the domestic box office than the Avengers. Cinema, baby.
I do not like when you'll say gross more at the domestic box office. What about box office overall though? It's still behind the Avengers in worldwide box office. It's a big old hit. Maybe it'll get the top 10. It's nice though. And Oppenheimer is now the biggest biopic of all time. It passed that Bohemian Rhapsody crap about Freddie Mercury. So good for them both. What a fun summer of movies. Good times.
It has
Pay the writers and actors.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, please.
Daniel, early prep work is happening on The Witcher, a season, a Thor. What do you think?
Yeah, so speaking of paying writers and actors, The Witcher filming is delayed till next year. They can't do any acting stuff. They can't do any writing stuff. But The Witcher's a big, huge show with lots of sets and all this other behind-the-scenes stuff. So they're starting to work on some of that reportedly at not Longclaw Studios, some studio in England that I don't remember the name of, Long Cross Studio in England. But yeah, so The Witcher didn't get canceled. Remember when people were saying that? That's ridiculous. They're working on it right now.
Sure they'll say it, yeah.
So Donald Glover, who he played Lando Calrissian in the Han Solo movie, he's going to get a Lando Calrissian show, but apparently now it's going to be a movie.
Disney, you've got to plan better. We've already been saying this. Star Wars especially, it's like they make shows they don't need. They hire people to make movie trilogies that never happen. Their shows and movies turn into shows. Get it together. That's it. That's what I'm saying. I mean, it might be good though.
That's it. Yeah, I'm thoroughly convinced at this point the Star Wars franchise is just being run by a bunch of Jawas. They're just junking. They want money. They're making junk. They don't know what they're doing. And then sometimes a really good thing comes out of it, like Andor.
Yeah, it does happen, but it's like kind of just throwing darts at the board wildly. Okay, and finally, you'll enjoy this news. Netflix on One Piece renewed for season 2.
Yes, huzzah! Netflix didn't sleep on renewing One Piece. It is getting a second season. It's going to be a while till we see it. The producers said they already had stuff written for season 2. Then the creator of One Piece, Ichiro Oda, came out and said it'll be a while before the scripts are done, and they can't work on it right now because of the strikes. Make a deal, studios, so we can get back to hanging with Luffy D. Monkey.
As
Monkey
Julie
D.
asked,
Luffy.
how many days are we on the writer's strike? I don't know how many days. It's definitely the longest writer's strike maybe ever.
Almost.
When was it? Like June?
May.
That they went on strike? May.
May
Okay,
2nd.
So been
I
several
believe
months.
we're over day 140 for the writers. They are, I believe by next week, it will be the longest writer's strike in history. They're
All right, let's beat the record.
They're like less than 10 days away from that benchmark.
right.
So yeah.
Now's
But
your chance, robots. Yeah.
they are actually, so they're supposed to be meeting, the WGA negotiating committee is supposed to meet with
Today,
the
I think.
AMPTP today.
Mhm.
Will that resolve things? I'm not too optimistic because of the track record of how these meetings have gone, but it's
Mhm.
definitely a step in the right direction. So hopefully they just keep stepping in the right direction.
It's been an interesting time, man, in labor between the actors and the writers, the UPS strike, the auto strike, a lot of union activity going on.
We didn't talk about this, but the Marvel VFX, they're unionized now for the first time ever. It's the first time a VFX company has been unionized, I believe, since the inception of VFX as a thing. Yeah, they're part of IATSE, which is like the stagehands crew sort of union.
We'll have more of this kind of talk, every single week. We're here normally. We started a bit late today because we had a meeting beforehand, but usually we're here on Wednesdays, 2 p.m. CST, 3 p.m. PST, 1 Mountain, noon on the West Coast, 5 a.m. in Melbourne. Apologies to Julie Davies. But we're here every week. Join us. It'll be fun. And if not, we're available in podcast form, Google Play, iTunes, wherever you may find your podcast. Give us a click, give us a like, give us a follow, give us a comment. It helps. We all know that you're great. So join us next week on Take the Black, the only show on the internet where we prefer our children alive.
Nice. Take care, y'all.